Right, so I'd like to introduce Stephen Miller next. Stephen, when I looked at your uncovered film on YouTube
Yeah.
to prepare really and to explore a little bit more about people's experiences, it actually brought me to tears. I thought it was such a moving film, and it is quite sobering really to see how attitudes have changed in Barnsley in the present day. So I think it would be so interesting to hear a little bit more about your project. So over to you, if you'd like to share with the group, please.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for inviting me along, firstly. I'll just go for Maurice Dobson for a little bit, just to hang on Maurice for a bit more. When I first came to Barnsley, went to the Maurice Dobson Museum, I assumed he was some kind of Victorian philanthropist that had left his collections and his house, and that was going to be the story. And it was Jeff Hutchinson that was showing me around, and he showed me these photographs of this Maurice Dobson. I'm like, oh, okay, there's more to this story than just a collector here. There's obviously something going on. So we did a project in 2014, an oral history project called Memories of Maurice, where we made a little documentary film. And I was privileged to talk to kind of tens of people that knew Maurice and shared the stories of him, not all of whom were willing to be filmed. So there's certainly a lot more about him that's on there. I think Ken describing him as a bit sharp is very generous from what I've heard. I'll share the links to that afterwards. And then, yeah, the Uncovered project came about really through working with the Barnsley LGBT Forum. We'd had various conversations in the build-up to the 50th anniversary of the partial decriminalisation of homosexuality in 1967. And the problem was they found they were going into schools talking about LGBT history, but they were just telling the same old stories and they weren't relevant to Barnsley. You know, it was Oscar Wilde, it was Anne Lister, the Stonewall riots. It was the same old stuff that really meant nothing to local people growing up in Barnsley today. So they wanted to do something and find out what was going on here. So yeah, we set about with a group of volunteers and started searching the newspapers. And we found, you know, tens and tens of cases of primarily men that were involved with other men. I say primarily men. A lot of the sources that we drew on were due to the fact that it was illegal. It's never been illegal for women to have same-sex relationships. That's never been criminalised. So their record in the archives is less prominent. So yeah, we found some fascinating cases right from the very early 1800s, right through the 20th century, up to legalisation. Perhaps the biggest one was one in the 1950s that actually ended up revealing that Barnsley must have had a very large gay subculture at the time. It involved 15 men who were all arrested, taken to court in Leeds. They got various sentences for the crimes as they were ascribed then. But of the 15, they themselves then were talking about many other men whose names they couldn't remember or didn't want to disclose. So actually the 15 probably equates to nearly 100 different men within Barnsley that were having relationships with each other regularly for at least a decade since the Second World War. And in court, they gave some fascinating insights into how that has come about. The vast majority were ex-soldiers, and a lot of them referenced the fact they'd been in the army as being a prominent feature of how they had come by. Having sex with men was a prominent feature from the army. And the reaction to that was very different. Some were married, had children, and talked about feeling very ashamed. Some referenced having suicidal thoughts, but seemed to have an inability to stop, doing it. And then completely opposite, there were some that were just kind of like, literally said, oh, I thought it was just a bit of fun. You know, I didn't really think anything of it, as if they didn't realise it was illegal, or there were so many people doing it that they just thought, well, you know, it's fine, which was really interesting to note. I think Barnsley is unique and not. I think if you looked at any town, city, village in the country, you would find similar stories. The unique situation in Barnsley links back to coal mining, I think. The stereotypical places that we talk about, you know, same-sex activity between men are, you know, public all-boys schools, prisons, the army. So we're looking at single-sex environments. And what has the coal mining industry been in Barnsley since the 1840s? A single-sex environment, men working underground, hot, sweaty conditions, often quite naked, you know, showering off afterwards. It is no great surprise that these kind of things were going on. I think there's probably a huge amount more to uncover still. Project like that, we only really scrape the surface. I think there's a lot more information out there that, yeah, we would love to do more on. That's a whirlwind tour of it. I'll share the links to the website, the films. If anyone's got any questions, Morris or the Uncovered Project, I'll happily talk through those at the end.